Everybody's practicing except Jamie. Okay?
So Tracy's like in the final stage.
Mm-hmm.
Do the neurologist this afternoon.
You will.
Yeah, hopefully.
What's Runyon popped up on the injury report.
Foot.
But anything to be concerned about?
No. Sore foot.
Jamie's the only guy who you've ruled out for Sunday at this point.
Yes.
And the other injured guys, would you say you're mostly optimistic about the rest of them? Or?
I think today will be an important day for the ones that haven't practiced to see where they're at. You know, the Bryces, the Amir, those kind of guys. See how they do.
Flat, trending to play.
Yep.
Obviously, the offensive success hasn't been there at home so far this season specifically. Anything this week you do differently? You change up? You try?
No, I mean we have our schedule. We got to go out there and play and coach well.
What do you think has allowed Tracy to have so many I don't know, whatever the definition of explosive is, big runs?
Yeah.
Like 7, 8, 9, 10 and more.
He's a good player. He's got size, he's got speed, he's got power, he's got good vision. I think the plays have been blocked well too, and he's made plays when they aren't blocked, and that's what good running backs need to do too, where it's not perfectly blocked and he can score through even if it's 2 or 3. But I think some of his power and explosiveness has shown up, running through tacklers or making a guy miss in space. He's done a good job. He's earned his playing time, and he'll continue to play. He's performing well, so he's earned what he's getting.
As you've always said, you've been in this league a long time. You see a lot of guys. I mean, there are guys who are identified as traits guys, but that doesn't always translate into performance. Is there something you could point to for Tracy, why he's able to produce this soon when he was really a traits guy? I mean,
yeah. No, I just think the type of guy that he is, he does have all the right, kind of off-field traits, the way he prepares, his intelligence, his commitment to the team, his character. And then I think Joel Thomas has done a great job with him. And he puts a lot of work into it. I think having Motor be there for a sounding board has helped him. And then again, you have to go out there and do it. You work hard in practice, you do all the preparation, and that's important. It's very important, but the most important is how you perform on game day. And he's performed. Continues to perform like that.
Over left tackle again?
Yep.
We'll look at that and wonder, you're the 7th pick tackle from a couple years ago. Doesn't even seem to be in the mix. Why is that the case?
Well, I wouldn't say he's not in the mix. He works some jumbo stuff for us, and based on how things are going, or an injury, he'd be one of the next guys in.
You came into training camp with him as the starting right tackle.
Yeah.
Obviously, wasn't ready. So I guess there's a disconnect there of how you went from there to him.
Well, I would say Jermaine went to right tackle, and Jermaine's played well. So need to continue to play well, but he's Jermaine earned his spot. How you doing today? You good?
Awesome.
Okay. Thanks, buddy.
Given how Hubbard played on Monday,
Yeah.
I guess people would look at it and say, why not move Jermaine to left tackle and put Evan at right tackle?
What people?
Us, fans.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
no, I'm with you.
Just people who are observing from the outside. So just from your perspective, why not do that?
Yeah, Hubbard's played 58 games or 59 after the Pittsburgh game. Has good experience, has some familiarity with what we do. He's, I think he's, improving as he learns the system, communicates with the guys, and again, we'll see where we're at. But he's a true pro, and he did a lot of good things, and improved this week as we go.
Have you changed the quarterback reps at all this week?
No.
A guy typically plays well against another guy. Do you put like one specific matchup? I'm talking about Deontay Banks against Terry McLaurin, has historically played him pretty well. Does that give a guy confidence? Does that carry over from week to week? Does familiarity breed?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's a better question for the players that are competing against one another. I think you have to be at your top of your game when you're playing a player like 17, who got to evaluate him coming out of Ohio State, go to dinner with him. I have a tremendous amount of respect for him, and then you put the plays on tape that he's had here this year, but really all the years he's played. he's an explosive player, and we're going to have our work cut out for us. All of us doing a good job of trying to create some negative plays and eliminate some of the big plays, explosive plays that he makes.
How much stress does it put on you when you have a guy who scrambles for, on third down like Daniels does?
It puts stress on every down when you play
Well,
a guy like that.
particularly you might have some down.
I mean, it's a challenge because he can do it. I think he can do it with three things. I think he can do it with his mind. I think he's a very instinctive player who has good anticipation, touch, accuracy. And for a young quarterback, that's always a challenge, but you can see that he can do that. He can do it with his arm angles, arc and pace, drive throws, and then obviously he can do it with his legs. And when you have a quarterback that can do all those three things and do it in critical situations, the play that he made to McLaurin against Cincinnati at the end of the game, and there's a free runner in his face, and he throws the ball before McLaurin's 4 yards off the line of scrimmage and drops a dime in the end zone. I mean, that's hard to do. Or the play he makes to McLaurin when he scrambles out to the right, there's three guys on him, he lofts up a 40-yarder in stride and hit him. Those are tough players to defend. He's got all the traits of being an excellent quarterback.
What have you seen from Deonte Banks this week in terms of how he's responded?
He's had a good week. Yep, he's had a good week.
Dan has pretty active linebackers, Bobby and Frank. How are they complementing each other?
Well, I'd say they're very physical too. They are tough to block when they blitz. They're instinctive, and Wagner. You're talking about Wagner? Are you talking about?
Wagner is regular.
Yeah. They're.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. Wagner. I have saw him before the game last game. He's been in this league for a reason for a long time, and he makes a ton of plays. He's very, very smart. Luvu is a hard person to block. Wherever you want to put him, but he's a thumper. That hit that he had on Malik chasing him down the field too, I think, is a great example of that. Great effort, toughness, good two inside guys for Washington.
I told him, told the guys who was going in the game, told Tay to stay in it mentally, stay ready to go, and that was about the end of it right there in that moment.
Why did you do it?
Why did I do what?
Bench him, or was it not your call?
It was a group talk we had, and we have great expectations for Tay. Obviously, we drafted him in the first round. I know, I personally went to visit him, spent time with him, came back here, talked to Joe, talked to Daves, and thought that he and I would do well together. So I'm as invested in him doing well as anybody. And just didn't feel he has consistently played up to the expectations the organization has for him, drafting him where he is. So wanted to really get his attention, that we expect more, that and the thing is he's played really well in spurts. But what he has to understand, and what I know as a DB is, there's 64 plays in a game, let's say. There are 58 of them where you do a great job, nobody notices. But there's those other 6 or 7 where now that's all you're judged on, those plays when the ball is at me and I have an opportunity to make a play, right? And want to see him in those moments be brighter, be bigger. That's why we drafted him, right? That's what I know he has in him, and I want him to do it consistently and at a high level all the time. And he has it in him to do it, and it's my job to get it out of him. Right? Again, I'm raised my hand and said, yes, draft him. I want him. I love him. Right? And so when that happened to him, happened to me as well. We're tied at the hip, he and I. And it wasn't good enough by him, and for that reason, wasn't good enough by me. I expect more out of me. Right? So just such high expectations for the young man. And consistently pushing him to reach those expectations we have and where we drafted him and what we all think of him.
Shane had mentioned yesterday that there was some tackling. He had kind of referred to why in particular did you guys bench him? That there were some tackling concerns in those first 3 drives.
Well, again, there was multiple things, okay. And multiple reasons. And at the end of it, again, we expect more. And I expect more from me too. Like it's not just him, it's me.
Take us through the
How
week
hard is that
before.
to do, Jerome? I mean, in that situation, how hard is that for a team, for a DB room?
Oh, you
for a
never
player-to-player?
want to do that ever. You never want to do that. What my hope is that he and I look back at this moment one day in the future and see the growth that came from it, and where he goes after this point because of taking something away from him.
I think the obvious question would be coming out of that Philly game, why not have just benched him to make the point before you got into the Steelers game?
And again, every game is different. Every situation is different. When you look at the Philly game, we had lost corners early in the game. We're like holding our anatomy to get out the game and just continue to play. And right there, it was a situation where I'm like we were already rotating guys at the other corner position just because of injuries in the game and guys playing special teams and that demand on them, and there was a lot going on.
No, I'm not saying in the Philly game. I'm saying after the Philly game, it was a big topic going into the Steelers game. You guys could have benched him, you didn't. So I'm just curious, like why you gave him that faith in the Pittsburgh game, which obviously wasn't rewarded.
Yeah, we again moved on from that. Talked to him about it again. Moved on from it, and again, we're going into that Pittsburgh game thinking we're going to give the New York Giants the best chance to win. We thought Tay being on the field to start the game gives us the best chance again. And again, for him, what he's got to understand is like those 48, 50 plays where the ball's away from me, or I cover my guys so well, the quarterback just looks away, which there's been a lot of that. Like, you guys don't care about that. You care about the 6 plays where the ball's at him and he's got to make it, or the 1 play where he didn't give the effort that he needs to, right? And it's my job, again, to get him to understand the importance of his draft position, our expectations of him, what he can provide for this team. And it's he and I got to get it done.
Coach, but is he getting the message? Do you feel he's getting the message? Because we've been through this a few times. Please understand my question. And now we're talking about it again weeks later. So you, a guy who played this game at a high level, okay? Is he getting the message? Because when you hear Brian Burns in the locker room after the game talk about, hey, we got some maturity issues in this locker room, we all kind of figured maybe some guys he was talking about. So I'm asking you, Coach, is he starting to get the message? Or, because it's getting to the point where every week you're talking to him about this.
And again, we'll see.
Right.
Like, again, I hope he does. We're going to try our best this week to go out and play our best game this week. All of us are going to try to do that. And hopefully this is the week where we do that and we go on. And then next time y'all have cameras in front of me, we're talking about something else. We're talking about how well he played and his growth.
Jerome, what do you think is the root cause of some of the bad habits you've seen from him here? Because I'm just speaking for myself. Like, I don't feel like I saw this from him last year.
Yeah.
So have you identified like where it comes from or why?
Right now, we're just working on, again, playing our best game this week and a tough matchup against a divisional opponent who's playing their butts off. The quarterback's lights out, the receiver's lights out. It's going to be another big challenge for us defensively. It's going to be another big challenge for him. We're going to ask him to step up and be big for us.
Why are you guys continuing to start him? Why are you starting him this week?
Because we think he gives us the best chance to win. Like, otherwise, why would we not start him? Like,
Well, I guess I just mean maybe just theorizing you keep him down for another week because you really want him to get the message. Or
well, again, I think and hopefully he got the message from the Pittsburgh game, and we moved on. Like, we're going to give him a chance to go out and show the player that he is.
What was the scene like on the sideline there after that Pickens play where there was some sort of altercation, like interaction there? How are you involved in that? How did he handle that?
Again, I immediately went to, all right, who's in the game? What's going on? What are we doing? After we had our discussions as coaches, I had to go get the guys ready to play. They're in the game, don't have time to deal with stuff like that then. I'm trying to get ready for our next series out because you never know how quickly that's going to happen. So working on getting the guys that are in ready to go, who's playing what, who's playing where, how we're matching up, that type stuff. So I immediately went there and then didn't really come back to it until like after the game because trying to beat Pittsburgh at that moment, wasn't trying to worry about anything else other than trying to beat the Steelers.
You ever had a player like Dexter yell at your position group like that?
So what?
Have you ever had a player yell at your position group like that?
Oh yeah, players yell and scream all the time. And on the play, like actually, that wasn't Tay's man. He was actually making a bonus play that actually saved us a touchdown. So that wasn't the reason for pulling him. That was actually a really good play because that wasn't his man. He fell off his coverage to go help on and just reacted and became an athlete and made a really good play that saved a touchdown for us. But like nobody knows that.
Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that. But my question was going to be, what when you told Tay that you were benching him, what did he say? What was his response to you?
Again, I didn't. I said, "Here's
I guess when you
who's
informed
going
the
in
group,
the game."
he was informed.
Yeah,
Did he respond in any way?
I was talking to the group and getting the guys in, ready to go, and going through all because not only like we got base, we got penny, we got sub, we got red zone, all these different groups. So I'm managing that process and making sure that I get the right guys on the grass, that we don't have to call a timeout, we don't get a penalty because we don't have enough, we got too many. All those things are happening. So I went right into kind of triage. Like, here's the issue I got to deal with now is get the guys on the grass who are playing and get them caught up on what they need to do. And one of them happened to be his first game as a Giant that he played. So, like, I'm working on that right now because that, to me, is the thing that has to be done right now.
We hear how passionately you're talking about, like, your conviction in him coming in the draft and obviously work close with him. How challenging is it for you to get through to him, or just as a coach, like how frustrating or disappointing? Or
I mean, any time that we don't get success is frustrating as a coach, and I'm sure it is as a player. Well, I know it is as a player because you put so much effort into it during the week. Like nobody sees the coming in early, staying late, how many walkthroughs we do, how many meetings we have, how many extra digging we do, and then when you do all that work and you don't have the results you want, it's painful. It's painful. I mean, like every week we lose. It's like a stab.
You kind of talked about the idea of how you feel accountable for him and vice versa in your relationship. You're attached at the hip. Is there also an accountability as a defense wide for teammates to understand how they're affecting other teammates?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you mentioned guys.
Yeah, we're all tied at the hip, and we play the ultimate team sport when you think about it. There's no free flowing in football like there is in other sports because you got 11 guys who are going to go out and all of them have 11 different jobs on every play, right? And then we have offense, defense, and special teams. And so it is the ultimate team sport, I think, because I have one job to do on this play. And then we stop, and then I got one job to do again on the next play. It's not like basketball where it's free flowing and one guy can just see something and make a cut, or soccer where the ball's moving and we're just reacting. It's very scripted, and so we are accountable to each other.
Jerome, what are your coaching points for the safeties tackling wise on the back end right now?
Keep your eyes up. Don't stop your feet. I think a lot of the times when we miss tackles, we're getting a wide base, right? And now it's like if that bench right there, if I'm a running back and I put a move on that bench and it's stationary, it's really easy to put a move on the bench because I know where it is and it's going to stay there. It's much harder when I keep coming and I have my body under control and my feet under me, and now I don't know what that bench is going to do. So, like, we're getting wide, basing up, and then stopping, and then also ducking our heads, which we've got to clean up.
How are things looking this week at left tackle as you guys continue to work through the post-Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, somebody's going to be out there playing, so we have contingencies, we have options, and we'll make the best of it.
What did you see from Chris this past
Hubbard?
week? Yeah, Hubbard.
Yeah, I think probably what you see, threw him out there against a really good opponent. Started off with a couple of pressures that could have been avoided. Settled in the game well. I thought he run blocked very well, as evidenced by you watch the film and the results. Just settle down a little bit better, stay a little bit more inside out on some of those pressures. We were just kicking out of there too deep.
How do you fix that?
Yeah, with him, drills and just emphasis where we're trying to put our hand and just trusting the fact that the quarterback's not going to be 10 yards deep, so you don't have to kick out of there so much. Sometimes tackles, feel like they've got to kick out of it, like they've got the deep third and coverage.
How much of that is contingent on the team, like in the quarterback? Does that vary by quarterback? Like, him getting used to
there are some
maybe
teams,
how Daniel operates.
Exactly. There's a piece of that, like, hey, trust him, and like, hey, quarterback's not he's going to be in a spot somewhere between 7.5 to 9. He's not going to be at 10, so you don't have to get quite as deep on your set. And then just some fundamentals of, okay, hey, this is where we need to locate our hands, which then will keep you a little bit better inside out.
I know, he's a vet, but how much of a tough spot is that for him coming in and getting thrown in, or do you can't view it like that?
I mean, you're honest. That's not an easy thing, but it is what it is. It's a situation we're in, and make the best of it and go.
What do you say to Josh, right? Because Zudu, you spent the summer having him play left tackle, and then after one game, you kind of shifted in a different direction.
I think it's the nature of the NFL. We just need to continue to work on ourselves. Josh is tremendous. He's a great teammate. He's a team-first guy. So he was ready to rock and roll, and we'll go from there.
Why do you view him as a tackle more so than as a guard? Like, that's obviously the position you guys decided to settle on him at.
What is the position that he's played, but in games, but he's played plenty of guard in practice. He's a versatile player.
But he's playing mostly tackle, right? I mean, if you say X percentage of tackle compared to guard throughout the spring, summer, he played majority tackle?
I'd have to think about that because he's played an awful lot of guard in practice.
Josh, you're talking about?
Josh Zudu? Yeah.
What do you think?
This training camp through this fall, as we've had some injuries, he's played plenty of guard. He looked great in one-on-ones at guard.
I was going to ask how he looked at guard.
Absolutely. Josh is a versatile player.
Carmen, you're talking about during the season, like during regular season practices?
He's played plenty of guard.
Yeah, no, I just didn't know that.
Yeah. We do individual and fundamentals, so I think he can play both.
If Aaron Stinney goes in and plays a significant amount of snaps, what does he give you at guard?
Stinney is a guy who's prepared, does well. When he reps in practice, you don't miss a beat. We're very lucky to have a guy. I think he started 13 games for Tampa Bay last year. He's a great teammate. He's versatile to be able to play left and right. So I expect him to go in and do his job, and he'll do it well.
What did you think of how Jerome played in that game the other night?
Yeah, I thought Jerome did a lot of things really well. Like anything, we got to improve. We're getting into November now. We need to start playing our best football up front, and concentrate. We got a good opponent here versus Washington. It's a good defensive line. They've been really doing well in their pressures. Just the increase in their frequency of pressure on the quarterback or sacks as the season's gone on is real. They're really feeling it in their rush. So we've got to be ready for that, which I think he will be.
How are they doing it? Because they used to have a lot of big names, first round picks. They're not there on the edges. John Allen's now injured. What's different about that group now?
I think that they have a really good scheme that they've leaned into, and from there, and it's a belief and a buy-in to it. They're going to create pressure, and guys rush hard. I don't think necessarily sometimes you'll get into a game and there's a complexity to the scheme and some rule changes, or hey, we might have to block something a little differently. They've just got some really good personnel on the edge. Inside, they play hard and physical. They try to affect the quarterback, and they rush hard. And they've got linebackers that are really good pressure guys as well. Sometimes you may have a linebacker who's a little bit of a lighter guy. These are two big linebackers that can rush the quarterback and can present some problems there. So,
how much growth have you seen over the last couple of months, but even recently in Tracy, and just how he's kind of learned the game, but almost it seems like his vision, his patience has all come together at the same time?
Well, anytime you get reps and you can, you get them in practice, you get them in a game, you learn a picture, how something happened, and it's like not a photographic memory, but it's like Pavlov. All of a sudden you hear something, you see something, you recognize, and then you react, and that's the position. It's a lot of reactionary variables for the running back. The only thing we can control is our stance, our start, our landmark, and then after that, everything else unfolds, and we have to be able to react. And this last game, with the way he played, and I think the style that he played with is something that we're always burning in their brain as far as trying to get downhill, be physical, be definitive in cuts instead of dancing behind the hole. And he did a nice job. He's developed in that regards. I think they've all done a nice job when called upon.
Can you take us back a little bit to when you were scouting a guy who had 1 year at running back, and what, I don't know if you were at his pro day or where your point of contacts with him, and what impressed you about, like, hey, I think this guy has a lot of room to grow at this position?
Well, it all starts, I GA'd at Purdue.
There you go.
So there's always like a special torch when you're talking players of places you've been and you've had a great experience there. So starts there. My wife's from there as well. So, but it started with the combine really from my first vision with him, or first exposure, because he went through the combine and he tested at the tops and all the, if you're looking height, weight, speed, he's at the upper tier there. So right away you're working with an athlete. Then you go back and how does the film, compare to what you're seeing, from the measurables. And you saw some traits, you saw a player that got better with time, being the first year playing. Then I also go back, his coach, he was a GA when I coached at Purdue, so I had good intel as far as, the makeup, the DNA of the person, are they willing to stick their face in the fire and protection, stuff like that. So I had good information, stuff that I felt was credible and I could trust. But you obviously, I come from a background where the runner has to do all three things, as far as block, stay on the field, 3-down value. So, he had the receiver traits, the routes could get better. They are getting better. It's a work in progress as far as I'm concerned. But you saw things that you like in a 3-down back when you go back and watch the college tape.
I'm sure there are traits that you see in a lot of guys when you do. It's just part of your process. How challenging is it to take those traits and develop them in such a short period of time for the player, not necessarily for the coach, but you don't see guys, you see a lot of guys with traits who never develop.
Well, a lot of it goes, the one trait you don't hear a lot about is intelligence as well, and he's a smart football player. I think he's grasped onto the things that we're asking him to do and develop, and I mean, we're all into the same clock as far as development, whether it's a first-year player or a guy you get right off the street and you got to get him ready for a game. That you don't get a pass when it comes to that. So it's a matter of the time commitment the player, regardless of position, has, to be ready to have their number called upon or be ready to go when their number is called.
So on draft day, are you sitting there in the fifth round, like with your fingers crossed as the 10 picks before him?
Oh yeah, there's always that
that's
guy,
my guy I wanted.
like you're waiting, and I didn't know what round we'd go with the back, and I knew once we got into that wheelhouse there that he was going to be in play because he was still there along with a handful of others, but he's a guy that at that point I was very, very pleased that he was still there because I actually had him a little bit higher than where we got him, so we got value.
Sorry, how much were you pushing on draft day for him?
What's that?
When you're in the draft room, how much are you pushing for Tracy in that situation?
I mean, I carried a torch for him. It wasn't like he was the number one guy because obviously you have rankings and where guys fall. But once we got to a certain wheelhouse, like I said, I was like, all right, pushing is the wrong word, but you're carrying a torch and you're giving the positive things and the vision. That's the main deal, is having a vision for the player as you're approaching that wheelhouse as far as where they can be picked.
I assume there's an obvious pride factor involved when you get a younger back and you get to mold him and what you want as a player. You had that in New Orleans, a couple times. But can you speak on that just as a coach, and what's that like?
I always, the way I'm talking, like with runners, and you get them really young, I like liken them to a piece of putty, and we're trying to mold them into a certain style, temperament, smart, all the stuff into that player that hopefully can parlay into a long career. I can't factor in other factors that happen, as far as this league goes, but there's pride. I mean, there's pride in the whole room. There's a certain style that when other teams are turned on, they're like, dang, that's a really good running back group, and we got to make sure we're aware of them wherever they're out in the field. So yes, you have that pride with a younger player, but it resonates through the room as well.
I'm sure you're expecting a lot of Daniel questions. I'm going to throw you a total curveball. it's a year ago now that Tommy DeVito became Tommy DeVito.
Third week in a row I've had this question.
Oh, really?
So third week in a row. Yes.
Really? How about that? So just tell me everything you said the last 2 times.
Tommy's been great in the room, great energy. He's handled everything really well. Comes in every day, building on his knowledge of the system. He's just done a good job with it. Hometown kid, doing it here. It's probably really exciting.
Yeah, what do you remember about that time? Like it's chaos.
Yeah,
and we're gonna put in this undrafted rookie, and he actually handled it.
Yeah, Tommy performed well, and that's what you look for. As a coach are the younger guys developing? Are they ready to step in when their opportunity's called? And Tommy was. He worked hard in the off season, just learning the system and all that. Credit to him. When some things happened, some guys went down with injuries, he was ready to go. It's the old cliche in the quarterback room. You're one snap away from being the starter.
Yeah.
People say it, not many people live it.
Yeah.
And he did, and he was ready for the moment. It wasn't too big for him. I'm proud of Tommy then, and I'm proud of him now with how he's handled it.
That's what I was going to ask. How is he still able to
100%.
further develop his game?
Yeah, he's still developing. He goes out every day, trying to learn. He asks great questions in the meeting. He had one in there today that was a great question.
Can you tell us what it was?
In a general term,
it was just about a concept, versus a certain coverage, whether we liked it or not. And there's really kind of arguments to both sides of it. So, you have those conversations, and you come up with the best answer for that. And, he has a good way of seeing the game for questions like that. So, like I said, very proud of Tommy. Happy he's in the room. He brings great energy. Does a great job every day working out here. So he's handled everything well.
Now the Daniel question. We're seeing a more emotional Daniel. Whether it's on the sideline, whether it's up to the 2-point play. Dable seems to like it. I know the fans want it. How do you feel about, is that him getting away from who he's being, or is that good?
I don't think so. I love it too. I like the fire. I like the passion. I like seeing that come out. And I think Daniel has always had that chip, always had that edge. I've certainly seen it. Just because others haven't doesn't mean it's not there. Whether people pick up on it or not, I think is the thing, because it's not the first time he's done that, even this year or last year or the first year I've been here. So I don't think that's something necessarily new with him. I just don't think people see it as much as they think.
We just got to be better at tackling, in space on the perimeter of the defense, and then getting the rest of the cavalry to show up too. I thought the guys did a much better job of that in the second half of the game. But that was the number one issues in the run game on Monday night.
Guys just kind of stayed in their gaps and being gap disciplined.
Yeah. In the second half, that happened. And, sometimes they take the receiver and they crack a backer, and now the corner's got to come up and be involved in tackling. And that's why we always say, it takes all 11 in the run game. You know what I mean? And most people think of it as just the front and the backers, but the offense run plays to make all 11 guys have to play a part in stopping the run game. And so I just thought the guys did a much better job in the second half of handling it and seeing it.
Can you sometimes get caught in bad play calls too, where if you guys on defense, you call a play where your end is crashing in for whatever reason, and they happen to call a pinball on that play, and all of a sudden he gets is that just like a luck thing, timing?
Yeah, it can happen. I mean, it's the same thing. We try to, in a passing game, we try to time up a blitz at the right time too. And sometimes they may have the best call to get the ball out to exploit that blitz, you know, and the same thing happens in the run game too. You know, you want to move your front at times so your guys don't stay stationary, and you know, it's a roll of the dice. If it's the right call, the movement looks great. If it's the wrong call, then the movement looks bad. But you know, that's just part of it.